Hi, my name is Kristen and I'm your host for Icons of Naples, this series where we honor our Naples community heroes, our movers, shakers, and history makers who helped make our community the place we love to call home. Welcome to Icons of Naples. I'm your host, Kristen Weirden. This is where we honor the past, present, and the future of our coastal community, Naples, Florida, and the icons that made it what it is today. This episode, we are at our location sponsor, the Feel Amazing Spine and Joint Institute. We thank them for letting us use this wonderful space. Today, we sit down with someone who's helped define the flavor and the spirit of Old Naples. For more than 5 decades, Tony Ridgway has been at the heart of the community, not only as a pioneering chef, but a restaurateur and a living witness to Naples' transformation from then to now. Thanks for joining us today, Tony.
Kristen, thank you very much for inviting me. It's wonderful to be with you and to talk about all those years.
There's a few.
Yeah, I refer to them as decades.
Decades, yeah, because they're kind of sliced into periods of time.
They are.
Yeah, okay. So let's start off. I don't think a lot of people know your history. They know your restaurants, but they might not know your history and where you started and how you ended up in Naples.
I first came to Naples Christmas week of 1962.
Wow, okay.
I had come from Kenyon College where I was in my first year, and my mom and my dad that fall and that summer had joined my Aunt Rosemary, who was an interior designer and had a business on 3rd Street called R&R Robinson Incorporated. And she was an extraordinary decorator. So my mom and my dad were living here at that time. And so I came down to Naples for my first visit at Christmas of 1962. And I remember arriving, and it was beautiful. And we were at my mom and dad's house. They were living with Rosemary and Dick because their apartment wasn't built yet. And so got there, and the first night was, fried chicken and mashed potatoes and green beans and sitting in front of a fireplace because it might have been 65 degrees. And Naples in 1962 is something that you almost can't describe to people. So over the next decade, I visited Naples Christmas break for 2 weeks, and then spring break for 2 weeks. And then I would be in northern Michigan for the summers, where a lot of the shops that were on 3rd Street at that time went for the summers. And I was a waiter up there, and loved being in the food business. And when I wrote my book, I talked about a place called This Old House in Conway, Michigan, kind of where I got my first restaurant experience. I am totally untrained in the culinary world. I am totally untrained in the restaurant management world. I just, for whatever reason, decided this is what I was going to do. And I was with my mom and a cousin of mine, 2 cousins of mine, and we were dining in the spring of 1971, and I was going to get out of the Air Force a few months later in August of 1971. And the restaurant world was running through my brain. I thought maybe that's where I wanted to go, and I didn't have a clue how to do it. And so we were dining at a restaurant called The Worst Place. It was where the Bevy is now.
Oh, okay.
It was owned by Doris Reynolds, who was one of the great characters of Naples' era back in that age and many years beyond. And we were sitting there, and I go, God, this is a great spot. This is the kind of a place where I could begin. And my cousin Nona says to me, well, it's for sale. So I remember talking and negotiating and working with Tom Tredis, who was my attorney at that time.
That's a name I haven't heard in years.
Yeah. Well, Ruth, of course,
yes.
Still in the real estate business. And so in August of 1971, I got my Volkswagen, I packed it full. I drove to Naples, Florida. I stayed in my cousin's guest house, which is right next to Paul Arsenault's house on the alleyway. And I remember going into Mamie Took's building on Fifth Avenue, the First National Bank of Naples, or the Bank of Naples. And she said, how much money do you need? And I said, I need $12,000. And talked to my mom and dad, and I think they signed before I signed. But that's where it all began.
Wow. So
August,
go ahead.
I arrived, and then October the 4th of 1971 was day one.
Wow, that's incredible. Like when you think of Naples back then, I didn't get here till 78.
Yeah.
And when I came here, there were still the 4 little cottages around town where they were on the alleyway, or 2 or 3 of them. And they were just these little 2-bedroom, 1-bath little places. And that's one of the first places we landed when we came. And then we moved a little further north, more affordable, closer to work, whatever the reasons my parents were. And I actually grew up next to Mr. Frank Whiteman.
Okay.
His house,
Yeah.
I grew up on Frank Whiteman. Didn't know as a kid that was the street name was a person until
Yeah.
later. But
Yeah.
so Naples back then, but I can't imagine in the 60s to the 70s, just the people that would come down and the amount of little bit of change, not as big as we see nowadays. But
Yeah, I think that right now we're accelerating. There are linear paths that we follow, and then there are logarithmic paths, which do it in multiples. And it seems like we are into multiples over the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure where we're going, but it will be an interesting and fun ride.
it's a journey. It's a journey.
Yes,
for
it
folk.
is.
So when you opened the restaurant, you just said, okay, I'm going to make this dive, but you weren't into the culinaries. You said, I'm just going to figure it out.
I loved food. My life was raised around gardens and orchards in Pennsylvania, and my family loved food. So food was always a part of our lives, and dining well was always a part of our lives. And I kind of eliminated things, and I said, I want to get into the business. I talked with my cousin who was in the restaurant business. He said, come work with me in Cincinnati. And he said, or you can go to a Michigan State culinary school and hotel school. And I go, that's not my personality. And so I talked to another man who was a friend of my mom and dad, and he lived in Kansas City, and he had 73 restaurants. He said, come work for me.
Oh, wow.
I said, I don't know. And he says, well, what's on your mind? I said, I know of a place in Naples that I can buy, and I can open my own restaurant. He looked me in the eye and he says, jump into it with both feet and never look back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think that it was easier then than it would be today,
Agreed. Yes.
because the money was not a big problem. There wasn't a lot of competition. And I think that I went in naive. There's a time to be naive because you don't really worry about whether you're doing it right or wrong. You just go forward.
You don't know the mistakes until you make them.
Yeah.
From a
And
business
when I wrote the
standpoint.
cookbook, I used a phrase a lot. It's what I knew at the time. And the good news is that when you are really into what you're doing, what you know 6 weeks later is a lot more than you did 6 weeks prior. And then you get 6 months, and what you knew 6 months prior is significantly more at that point. And you compound, and then all of a sudden you get more research and you do more travel, and all of a sudden you go, wow, I can really do this.
Yeah.
And that's what it's all about. You just jump in sometimes. And I did.
That's good business advice, though, too.
But I also had the advantage that my mom and my dad and family were very settled in this community and were players in the community. So people knew my name, they knew their names, and I was going to get X number of dollars coming into business, whether I was any good or not. And there were nights that were less than perfect. How's that?
And such is the restaurant business, though, too.
And we can still say that, and everything we do today is to make certain that they're as perfect as they can be. And I know that every restaurant, one of the great stories that I tell about restaurant quality is that Wynn and I love to dine everywhere. And we were sitting in Daniel Boulud's restaurant in New York City called Cafe Boulud, which was at that time one of our favorite restaurants. And we were in a banquet with her, Wynn on my left side and me next to her. And we were just this special night. And we're having a great time. And there is a waiter that's no further from me than the table across from us, being berated by the customers. This is the worst restaurant I've ever been in. I'm going, this is a great restaurant. But I learned the lesson at that particular time. No matter how great you are, there will be somebody who thinks you're pretty bad.
Yeah, there's always going to be that.
Yeah. So
Yeah, part of life too.
You move on.
I agree. So you had the worst place.
Correct.
Which sold bratwurst.
Correct.
So it's not the worst, like different kind of worst, it's bratwurst. But then you decided you moved to, now did you move to 3rd Street or you opened a second restaurant or how did Chef's Garden come about?
So Bill and Ginny Harper from Cleveland, Ohio, built the 500 Fifth Avenue building on Fifth Avenue and called me and said, we'd like you to open a restaurant. And I'm going, God, I've only been in the restaurant business for about 8 months and you want me to open a new restaurant? I said, sure, let's do that. So we talked to Mamie Took again. And then in the summer of 1972, I went to Italy and to London for 3 or 4 weeks and dined everywhere that I could and got lots of ideas and came back to Naples and opened up the Chef's Garden on Fifth Avenue. The Chef's Garden on Fifth Avenue and the menu at that time was very drastically different. I mean, you had the Piccadilly Pub, you had St. George and the Dragon, you had Kelly's Fish House, you had the Witch's Brew, you had the Pewter Mug.
Yep, I remember.
And that's about it. So we were the first restaurant that had a cuisine that was well beyond just a piece of broiled fish or a steak off a grill. And I can sit here and I can remember some of the items and I can remember how it looked. It was pink and green with lattice walls and lots of flowers and servers wearing lily pants. It was really quite different, and we did wonderfully. And we were very busy, and then all of a sudden, the Fleischman family was developing down on 3rd Street, and the Chef's Garden moved from 5th Avenue in 1976. And then Truffles opened in the same building in 1978. And Truffles was another wonderful creation. I remember sitting at table 22 in the Chef's Garden, and we were there with my partner, Bern, and probably 6 or 8 of our key servers in the Chef's Garden. And we made the following statement. We have the opportunity to start a brand new restaurant with a brand new concept on the 2nd floor of this building.
Yeah.
So we called it Truffles, a cafe bistro. We probably explained the term cafe bistro to 10,000 people. And it was, again, beautifully designed by my aunt with wonderful rich hues. We had fabric on the walls to keep the noise down. The ceilings were very low, so we actually cut an inch off the chairs and the tables to make it feel as if you weren't in a small room. And Truffles created a level of interest in Naples from a culinary and style sense that probably has not been repeated many times.
I have to agree with that. My grandparents came here way back before I did at 78. They were coming here for years at the old, it was the old Hilton on 41 is where they would always stay.
Yeah.
And they found Naples like most people did by happenstance. You know, they were on the other coast, drove over here. But my grandmother was a chef, also self-taught. And because it was really steak and seafood places and very masculine in her terms, that when she would go to Chef's Garden or Truffles, which was always a special occasion, and she said it was always a culinary delight.
Yeah.
Because it was such a change from, she's from Connecticut, and you know, there was different places they could go into Manhattan if they wanted to eat something different and whatever. And so it was, for them, it was always such a treat to go down and walk around 3rd and 5th and grab some dinner and then go back home and talk about it. They always talked about the food that they had.
I think that in that era, we were very different. In the era where we are currently, there are maybe 200 restaurants that are Menu price similar, menu similar to Ridgway Bar and Grill, to Bayside, to 5 or 10 on Fifth Avenue, and 5 or 10 on 3rd Street, and then up and down the trail and here and there and everywhere. There aren't many restaurants that have the ability to say, we're really one of a kind.
Yeah.
Partly because there's maybe 600 or 700 restaurants in Collier County, and it's hard to say you're one of a kind when you're one of 700.
Yeah. Well, now we have the corporate restaurants too that have come in.
That's another story.
Yeah, that's and to me, I think when you become a tourist town, sometimes people are looking for what they know because some people don't like to explore food. So I think that filled the gap, but then I also think it takes away from some of our creatives who can't open a restaurant, but they want to work in one that's a little bit more, gives them some leeway creatively, because, those menus, you can go to J. Alexander's here, or you can go to J. Alexander's in Tennessee.
Yes, you can.
But that, I think when you have a tourist community, it fits that, the people who want to know what they're eating for dinner.
I think a lot of people like the comfort of knowing the place where they're going. And we in the independent restaurant world fight it every day. And I remember years ago, my partner, Bern, and I had a radio show on WNOG.
Oh my gosh, I remember WNOG.
Yeah, and we were on at 11 o'clock on Thursday mornings for an hour. And we would always begin and end the radio show by saying, thank you for listening, and please remember to dine in your locally owned and independently operated restaurants. And I still believe that, and I still talk about that in the newsletter. There's nothing wrong with chains. In fact, there's a lot of right with chains. They repeat and repeat and repeat and repeat. But there's a time where the chain, when you have a set of rules for every server that they must follow, and they all look alike, they all sound alike, and then all of a sudden they become automatons versus wonderfully social individuals.
Yeah.
And that's really where we're going right now, is to get out of the sort of automatic world and into the world where places have personality, and you can see different personalities in the restaurant.
Yeah. And when I travel, I try to find local people to go to the local places.
Yes.
Because I want to have the local flavor, and I want to keep the money I'm bringing local, because there's that aspect to it here.
And you've seen all the articles that I've seen that say, if you spend local, this is what stays in the community. If you spend chain, this is where it goes.
Yeah.
And it's a real number.
It's a fact. And in a growing community, I think the more that you can keep local, the more that we can work on our infrastructure, like our poor roads right now.
We can always use a little help there.
Always use a little. Always use a little. Now, how do you decide the concept? Because so we have Chef's Garden, we have Truffles. Then there was, as we spoke about earlier, my old favorite, Villa Pescatore, Plum's Cafe, Tony's off 3rd, which I was so grateful when you opened, because my grandmother and I, as she got older, that's where we would have coffee.
Yeah.
And then you have Bayside, and then the wine shops. So how do you decide on these different concepts and palettes?
Well, I think that when we talked about Bayside, which was in 1990, it was really simple. Okay, you look at the water. So if you're going to be on the water, let's do seafood. I mean, it's as unsophisticated as that.
Right.
We didn't sit down and pay somebody to do a study.
Yeah.
We already had an Italian restaurant at that time because we had Villa Pescatore.
Okay.
And when we bought Villa Pescatore, I'm having a difficult time bringing up the name of the restaurant at that time, but we called it Villa Pescatore because we wanted it to be an Italian seafood restaurant. And that was the time when we knew that the Ritz-Carlton was coming into town. And we kind of sat on it patiently for about 6 months and then went, wow, this is going to really make a difference in this town.
Well, it changed the north. I think all of Pelican Bay helped change the north side of town as far as the ability to have restaurants that were sustainable.
Yeah. My single belief is that the Ritz-Carlton's arrival changed Naples at that particular time. And I think that you and I, in the prefacing remarks before we even sat with the live mics, we talked about what's the next thing to make its mark on Naples.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
But I don't think we'll ever see anything that changed Naples the way that the Ritz-Carlton's Arrival did.
I have to agree with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. That and the Phil, I think.
And I think the Phil was huge. Yeah. We did catering at the Phil for a number of years.
Really?
Boy, was that filled with passion and love, and oh my gosh, some difficult times.
When you say passion and love, the first thing I hear is, oh, and a lot of just get it done, just make it happen.
Oh yeah,
Because you're going now all the way south to north, or were you doing it out of Villa Pescatore at the time?
We had a catering kitchen at that time.
Okay.
And we were big into catering, and it was perfectly planned. It was mostly perfectly executed, but we didn't realize that when people came after the performance and it was 10 or 11 o'clock at night, that they would fill their plates to the brim. Oh. I remember getting on the phone and saying to the chefs at Ridgway, or at Chef's Garden and Truffles and Bayside, bring me everything you've got that's cooked that I can slice.
Wow. Yeah. Yep.
Because we were going to run out of food.
Yep.
And we didn't. But it wasn't, let's just say, the picture of perfection at 10:47 did not look to be the same at 11:47.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But we got through it.
Because you were able to do it on your feet, think on your feet, not you persevered, obviously, but then had places to pull from.
Yeah.
And that, unfortunately, not everybody has that nowadays to do.
One of the great stories that I have is that Truffles opened in 1978, and the Christmas walk on 3rd Street, I think the first one was in 1979. And my wife and I were scheduled to go to a black tie dinner party for some really great friends down on the beach. And I'm in the shower. We've got Christmas walk. I've got my chef in charge there. And we're off to this black tie dinner party selling their anniversary or birthday or whatever was going to be great. And my wife comes to me and she goes, I think you need to talk to her, to the host. So I go, okay. What's up? The caterer didn't show up. Can you prepare dinner for 75 people in the next 2 hours? So again, I get on the telephone. I talk to Gary Johnston, who was my chef at the time and who was one of those people who could do anything.
Wow.
And I just said, this is what we need to do. I said, there are 4 strips that just came in, the whole strip loins. I said, get those, get this, get that, bring them down. And 2 hours later, we fed 75 people, plus we did 300 in Truffles and 200 in the Chef's Garden that night.
Wow.
On your feet.
Yep.
Not panic. Stop and think. And there have been nights in the kitchen where we've been so busy and so behind that as an expediter, I would just say, everybody stop. Just stop, and just what you just did.
Breathe.
You breathe deep. And I go, guess what? No matter how bad it is, we're going to get through this, and we're all going to walk out of this kitchen, and we're going to be fine.
Yep.
People are going to wait, and somebody's going to get unhappy, but we're all going to be fine. It's when you start yelling and screaming and swearing. And the worst thing is blaming. I'm so tired of blame. In our business, there's always somebody to blame.
But does it solve the problem?
It doesn't solve the problem.
Right.
And the reality is that if I were the perfect owner and the perfect manager, I would have thought of every scenario and we'd never have to blame anybody. So honestly,
but there's the human element that things happen.
Oh yeah.
There's no such thing as perfection. I always say I'm a perfectionist in recovery.
Oh, I love that term. That one's going into my brain cells because perfection's a great goal.
Yeah, but it's not attainable. So just do the best you can.
Thank you. That's the word. It's not attainable.
Yeah.
And if it were attained for a minute, it's not sustainable.
No, true. Very true. And I think you just made, in my mind, at least from a business standpoint, and a person who it goes to restaurants and things like that, is your success. You can see your leadership just in the statements that you just made. Is you probably have a lot of respect from your not only patrons but the people that have worked for you over the years, because you get it. Probably because you learned from the ground up,
I think I was always part of the team.
Yeah.
I remember those original nights in the kitchen. We'd have 4 of us on the front line. There'd be 2 on one side and 2 on the other side, just like there are today. And you'd look 20 minutes later, you weren't where you began.
Yeah.
You were somewhere else in the kitchen.
Yep.
And you just made it work that way. And it's just the way it happened. And
I could just see that.
We just float around and communicate. We're in the kitchen. We communicate in very odd ways. We communicate sometimes by touch. Just say you put your hand on somebody's shoulder and say right behind you. In this day and age, you have to be careful where you put your hands.
Yeah.
But we push each other and just walk through, and kitchens are great places.
I remember my aunt's a chef also. She just retired. And I remember as a kid being fascinated, because when I was a kid, we had to get a choice. You could get up in the morning and go with my grandmother when she went down to the Mews in Greenwich, where my aunt was a chef, and do her little thing there. Then we go to the grocery store, and then she'd go home and make all whatever she had to make for whoever she was making it for. Or you could vacuum when you got up. And my grandmother left the house at between 5:45 and 6 in the morning.
Yeah.
So you had a choice. But I was always fascinated with my little hard-boiled egg at 7 and 9 years old.
Oh, yeah.
And I'd sit there at the table, but I could see the kitchen.
Yeah.
And how they would put out breakfast and lunch or whatever I was there for I think there was 75 to 100 people 3 times a day.
Sure.
We're at the Mews. And then my grandmother, when she'd say, okay, we're going to cater a wedding. Come on. And I'm like, what am I doing at 10? I learned a lot.
I think those are wonderful times to be involved in our industry because, one, you have such a pure and simple look at what's going on.
Yeah.
You don't see the negatives. You don't see the back side sometimes, which can be ugly. You simply see what's transpiring at that moment. Yeah. And in our business, that's really what we do.
It's just it's almost like a dance.
It is very much a dance.
I always related it to a dance. Getting the food out was like a dance.
Yeah.
At least from behind the scenes. Don't get me wrong. I love being out front when somebody else is waiting on me and cooking it and the whole thing. But yeah, so true. So over the decades, Naples has experienced a lot of change, especially Fifth. But Third has retained, at least in my opinion, construction-wise, it seems to this day still have retained a lot of its charm and its old town feeling, old Naples feeling. What do you attribute that to overall?
I think that in the years gone by, the original owners developers of Third Street were originally Mr. Fleischman. Mm-hmm. Now Mrs. Tobin, his daughter, has been responsible. There are beautiful fountains. Mm-hmm. There are beautiful courtyards. There is a feel to Third Street because it's not strictly linear. On Fifth Avenue, you get down, you look down a line, and everything's along the same line. Every building's along the same line. When you have a place that's designed where you can jog in and you can walk in and you can take a look around, it draws you into rather than through. I'm looking across at my wife right now. There's no person who loves more than to look into or to walk into something that's a little bit off the beaten path. You just don't walk down the street. Yeah. And that's the great advantage I think that Third Street has. There are just wonderful places to walk into and to discover.
I like that it's kept its looks almost the same. There's a few changes here and there.
There are a few changes.
But nothing that's too much. It's not too. Like it still keeps, like sea salt, like it still keeps its charm. I don't know about the new hotel that's going in. We'll see how that turns out when it's done. But it was ripe for something had to be done there. So I get that. I will say on 3rd, I think the building I missed, on 5th, the building I missed the most that I feel like really changed the lower side of 5th Avenue, because the very top of it still looks the same to me, is where the used to be a parking lot and the German deli was.
Yeah.
And then they eventually closed off the parking lot, and then it was a place you could just sit with the tables and chairs from the restaurants. I have to say, like, that to me still had that, and now it's a building with condos. But that to me still kept the lower part of it. Now I think it's again,
I think if you have listeners who will be watching the two of us, don't think about the German deli. I'm looking across at my wife, and I can remember going in and ordering my roast beef with lettuce and tomato and onion and lots of the Thousand Island dressing on pumpernickel bread. And I can't remember going into that and not seeing at least one, if not 2 or 3 friends who were there at the same time. And I think that was one of the great things about those eras, is that no matter where you went, you saw somebody that you knew and you wanted to say hello to.
Do you think that's one of the reasons, like, say Tony's? Like, I know when I used to go there with my grandmother, we would run into a lot of the same people.
Yeah.
Do you think that's why some of the places, say like a Tony's or a Campiello's, because they have those little courtyardy spaces that people gravitate towards it? Or even like your garden area, people just love to sit there.
I think when you have a restaurant that draws repeat business day after day after day, there's nothing more fun than walking into a restaurant and seeing somebody unexpectedly that you really want to see.
Yeah.
That's a great, and that goes, this is why I come here.
Yeah.
That's exactly why I come here.
It keeps that neighborhood feel. I think the more that we get into technology.
I think we all need neighborhoods. Yeah.
I agree with that. Yeah. I think that's why people gravitate towards gatherings, small, post-COVID. It was a little harder to get people to gather.
Yeah.
But I think people craved the gathering. I mean, I have no questions in here on this, but how did that era affect your business? Because I know people, like some people wanted to gather. We lived in Florida. Some people didn't.
I remember that day as if it were yesterday.
Really?
We were sitting in the garden with family. It was the 20th of March of 2020. And we knew that something was likely going to come.
Yeah.
And about 1:30, I got a message from somebody, and they said, the governor has said we all shut down that day. So we did. Tony's Off 3rd is not a restaurant. It is licensed as a grocery store.
Oh, because you sell other things.
So Tony's Off 3rd was allowed to stay open. So we were able to produce to-go food from the Ridgway kitchen and sell it at Tony's, and people would come in and get that.
Okay.
And we would call, we could deliver that to you. Said, oh no, I've got to get out of the house. I'll come pick it up myself.
Right, right.
So we were a little more sane because I went to my office every day.
Yeah.
And the first couple of weeks I sat there and I'm going, okay, this piece of paper that I'm signing to get all this money from the government says if I lie, I'm going to jail. Right. And I go, I don't really want to go to jail. So let's do this honestly. But you still had questions and said, did I answer the question correctly? Did I ask for the right amount? Did I do anything?
Yeah.
But it was a strange time.
Wasn't it?
It was a very strange time. And
I mean, you've lived longer than I have, so you've seen a lot of things in the world. Wasn't that just like the strangest?
I think that was the first one that was probably the most strange. I mean, 2001 with the buildings, that was, that was just, so difficult. And I do remember we were talking about this the other day, is that Ridgway has always been the place where you could go when things were difficult. I remember we were open on the night of 2001 in September, 9/11, and we had tons of our best customers who came just to be with friends.
I'm getting goosebumps.
There is nothing better when things are tough. When there's a death in the family, what happens? Friends come out, family comes out of the woodwork and surrounds those who need it the most. And in those years, we've all needed it. Yeah. And who knows what's next?
No, I think you've offered a lot of people a place to go and gather and feel welcomed, and also a sense of camaraderie and neighborhood.
Yes.
I mean, not just your longevity there, but when you go in, the feel, the ambiance, the community sense. It was like it's a community staple, a community
It is.
outlet for
Partly
people
because
to come
we've been
to.
members of the community.
That helps.
Does help. Yes.
It goes back to the local thing.
Yeah, it does.
Local restaurants,
Yeah.
local versus chain. So we were talking earlier about Ian.
Yes.
And 2002, you opened pretty quickly. So you tell us what that was like, and what kind of, did you have damage? I mean, how fast were you able to open?
Wynn and I were in Vermont, and a manager was at home on Wednesday, the 28th of 2022, and she was sending me pictures. At 1 o'clock, she sent me a picture of the garden, and I could see there was water in the garden and up the first step, and showed me a picture of the parking lot in the back, and I could see the steps and I could see the plants. At 2 o'clock, she sent me the same photograph.
Oh.
I could not see the steps in the garden. I could not see the plants in the parking lot. And I'm going, wow, I don't know what's going on, but it's frightening.
And that's a first, right?
So then I woke up the next morning and I bring up on my laptop, and on the front page of the New York Times is a picture of, you could have taken it from Bayside, overlooking Gulf Shore Boulevard north with the water literally everywhere. And then I go, oh, and then there's the picture of the Sanibel Causeway, which no longer existed. And I'm going, wow. So we were in Vermont on the last few days of our month up there, and Wynn and I had massages that morning. And so I'm on the massage table and I go, could you go out and ask Wynn if she's heard from anybody in Naples? So Melissa comes back, lying through her teeth. Everything's just fine. Well, Bayside was dry, and Ridgway had 4 inches of water.
Oh, that's not bad.
Wasn't bad. And we're high.
Yeah.
So you think about it. Anybody else in our neighborhood had 3.5 feet. Wynn and I got back on Sunday night. My business partner, Suki, was in Arizona. She called our contractor. The contractor was literally in the restaurant on Friday. When we got back on Sunday night, the restaurant was stripped to the floors. The walls were already cut out. We had 25 of those air drying things. Oh, it was just, and we were open in 16 days.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
Teamwork, though.
Haven't been paid yet.
Oh, yeah. I don't think anybody has.
Yeah.
I was talking to another restaurateur just out and about one day, and he was saying how difficult post Ian as being a restaurateur it has been because of the insurance and things that have come out of that.
Well, it's not. It's the insurance is one thing. The biggest issue, and you and I talked about that earlier, is the emotional effect.
Yeah.
Wilma, 2005.
Yeah.
We paid for Wilma for 10 years indirectly. When I say we paid for, we suffered because October wasn't as good in 2006 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 or even 13 or 14 until 15. People get tired, they get frayed, and they don't want to be part. Why create a problem? Yeah. I'm going to go somewhere where there's not going to be a problem. Yeah. Well, going to Asheville didn't seem to work for people. And right now there aren't a lot of safe havens. And we've had the most wonderful, delicious, safe fall.
Oh, this year has been incredible.
People will go to me, how was your summer? It was great. We didn't have a storm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's one thing I a lot of people don't realize is when you rely on the tourism and, people coming down in October or November, because our season was going really, it used to be Thanksgiving to Easter, but then it would kind of extend on the ends, right?
Yeah, it did.
And it was really getting to mid-October until we had the storms, I think, at least from my perspective. Right. And so then people go, well, I don't want to have to cancel my trip.
I know.
Let me take it in December. Let me go in May or something. Yeah. And so it really kind of dried up that October, November, the storms did. And then last year, of course, we had
Had a couple visitors.
we had a couple run-bys.
Yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
They didn't stick around. They just kind of came and said hello.
They reminded us what could happen.
Right.
Yeah.
But today was this year. So I think people just get storm fatigue or hurricane fatigue.
No question.
And so they just want to not deal with it. What do you think about the changes down? Because now you've seen a lot of changes construction-wise because of these older homes. You know, they just couldn't weather the storm, so to speak.
Yeah.
My favorite is still 8th Avenue because I met the owner who kept those houses. He put the little lighthouse, I call it the lighthouse one, back together.
Yeah.
But what do you think going forward?
If I owned a house and I could raise it, if I had a wonderful old Florida cottage and I could raise it, to give you an example, remember we talked about my first night in Naples?
Yeah.
It was on the corner of 2nd and 10th. That house has been raised. It's the white house that has a little garage attached to it.
I'll have to go look.
And then it's on the corner of 10th and 2nd, and they raised it up probably 3 to 4 years ago, 35, 40, 45 inches. And I watched it go up. It was just fine.
Yeah.
I think that if I had a house that I loved,
Yeah.
and I know that there's a house, you know, the Baum house, that's being raised.
Yeah.
When I say raised, I don't mean knocked down. It's being elevated by the necessary level, and the city was so excited that they would do that they said, "We'll bend this because you can do that."
Yeah.
So
I think it's going to take a community effort. Like the city and the county has to work with the homeowners that want to save some of our older community.
Yeah.
With the regulations that maybe didn't exist, that we need to maybe create a space for them to
But
be
I think
able to
I would
save
raise
these.
up. I mean, rather than knock down and start over and spend $1,000 or $2,000 a square foot to build something that's quite huge.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have a lot of visitors and a lot of residents and a lot of newcomers. Everybody talks about our newcomers. Love our newcomers because they help sustain when people do leave or age out, as we say.
That's a great aging out. Yeah.
It's a little real estate talk conversation we have. How do you balance satisfying the old customers, but then still maybe bringing in new dishes or new things?
How much time do we have?
Zach will make us a little extra time if we need.
I think that's really a key because, again, I talked about where I am today versus where I was. My whole philosophy on restaurants has changed over these decades. There was a time, and I think we talked about it, where food was my only focus. Now my primary focus is on the place. And the place is a visual when you walk in, but more the place is, does somebody connect with you when you're at the front desk? Do they say, "Hi, how are you? Oh, I recognize you. It's nice to see you again." I think that those connections are so important. Yes, the menus are different in many ways. The soups that we make, the sauces that we make are different than they were 50 years ago. There's not flour used in any of them. And there wasn't a time when it goes, well, I'm just simply not going to do flour because it's gluten-free time. It's because it's a transition that we made and the products are better. Right. So the tomato basil soup at one point had a roux and a flour in it, and now it just has extra vegetables to give it that natural body. And that's how we're cooking today. But a little better, I think a lot better than we were cooking. We don't use as much cream as we did years ago. We don't use as much flour and sauce. In fact, we don't use any. Baking is still baking.
No, the muffins are still really good.
Muffins are still really good. I had a scone this morning because I knew that it was going to be kind of a punky day, and I didn't know when lunch was going to happen or if it's going to happen because I'm on my way to a meeting from here. But it's not night and day difference. Mm-hmm. People say, what is your cuisine? It's American cuisine with French culinary techniques with a little bit of Italian thrown in. And the menu isn't that much different than it was, but in the original years, I was just so in love with French food. I mean, my mind just went through French cookbooks. Then I looked at mousses and pâtés and terrines and all the things that I did them.
Yeah.
And I loved them.
Oh, I can see the passion.
But today it's just different.
Yeah, it is.
You know, a perfectly cooked piece of local grouper with a vegetable of your choice and 1 or 2 or 3 of the 4 sauces that you can get at both Ridgway and Bayside. We're allowing you to design your own menu some nights. You don't have to order what I create for you. You can come in and say, I'd like an A, B, and C, and we'll do this and we'll do that. Okay, this is what Kristen wants tonight.
I like that. I like that. Because sometimes people just want a little bit different.
We're dining differently. We're dining out a lot. Remember, there was a time that going out was a big deal.
Yeah, it was Friday, Saturday, birthdays.
Going out today is not a big deal.
No, we go out a lot more.
We do.
Yeah, we eat out a lot more. We want to be, I think because we eat out more, we eat healthier because we have to kind of watch what we eat as we get older. So it's nice to have a choice of places that have healthier options or, you know, like you say, less creams and butters. But when you only did it once a month, it didn't really make a big a deal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
But if I have a great piece of bread, it's going to have butter.
Yeah. Some good butter too.
Some good butter.
Some good butter.
Oh yeah, some really good butter
for sure. So as we start to wrap up here, you've mentored a lot of our Naples dining scene through the years. I know Skip Quinlan was one of them, and he had opened, I think, 4 restaurants.
He opened a slew of them.
Slew of them over the years, right? What was that like for you to mentor them and watch them go on to create their own spaces, their own culinary experiences for people?
You know, in the years when we were working together, I'm not even sure we knew that we were mentoring. We were just working together.
Yeah.
Today, I actually feel as if I can be a mentor. Part of it's just age. You know, when Skip left, he went out to California first. And then we were doing a dinner at Farniente Winery, and he came up from Santa Barbara and worked with us for those 2 dinners at Farniente. So I saw him then, and he came back. He did a great job. And I have seen Skip more in the last 2 years than I had seen him in the prior 15 or 20 years, partly because he sold his business. And I went to him and I said, you know, thanks, Skip. You took all the money.
And then he retired.
Yeah, I said, you got the last good. He said, I did. He said, I sold at the peak of the market.
Yeah.
And but we've talked, and he has been effusive in his comments to me about what we all did in the 70s and the 80s. Yeah. And I never really looked upon it quite that way. But those times we've sat together and I think about, and I have some menus from those eras, and I go, oh my God, that's pretty serious.
Yeah.
And it was great. And we changed the menu every 3 weeks in its entirety. And we started them on a Thursday night, and we went 3 weeks, and probably the following Monday after it started, I'm sitting and working, and then the chefs, we'd all meet and we'd talk, and we'd separate it up into, and in that era, everybody in the kitchen ended up owning and or being an executive chef. So it wasn't just that we had a bunch of line cooks.
Yeah.
But it was a great time.
Now I know why my grandmother said it was a culinary experience, because every time she went, it was different.
It was different every time.
That's what she loved even as much about it as she did the food then.
Every time. And then now we're just the opposite, because the kitchen isn't staffed with people whose abilities are beyond. We're into a world where we have technicians.
Yeah. And
we learned that lesson. I took a bunch of my chefs. Skip was one of them. We were in New York City for a weekend, and we were at the restaurant. Jean-Georges Vongerichten had a restaurant called Lafayette, and we were there for dinner on a Friday night in August. And we go in, we're the first ones of the night. And of course, it was slow for the whole night because it was August in New York in the mid-'80s. And there's a glass wall. And there's obviously a kitchen behind the glass wall, and it's, say, 6:30 or 7 o'clock, and there's nobody in the kitchen. I'm going, this is really weird. I need to know how this is. So all of a sudden, everybody arrives, and because it was slow, and the chef knew we were chefs, and he came out, and Jean-Georges Vongerichten came to our table, and I go, okay, talk to me about what's going on. He goes, I come in with 4 or 5 prep people in the morning. And then at 6 o'clock, the line cooks come in. And from that day forward, we have followed that example. We have prep cooks who come in and do the prep work, and we have line cooks who come in and do the line cook work, because they're very different. Mm. A prep cook doesn't feel the pressure of the moment. Mm. A line cook understands the pressure of the moment and perhaps even thrives in it. So that's where we are today, and it works out beautifully.
Well, it's more efficient too.
It's much more efficient.
Yeah, for sure. Are there other people that you mentored over the years that went on to open restaurants in Naples?
There were a couple of the Fatigatti brothers. I'm trying to think. There were some couple that went on to work for country clubs as executive chefs, but nobody like Skip that opened up his fabulous restaurants.
I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, as we wrap things up, is there any moments or landmarks or little things about Naples that you want to share with us or that you feel you would like to see preserved?
I talk about this pause a lot because we can't just blurt things out. And there's a lot of blurting
and your
these
wife's
days.
over there, she's just waiting.
I have memories of Naples that go back 60 plus years.
Yeah.
And there are memories of Naples that I have that are the same today as they were. Mm. It was Christmas of 1970, whatever, and I'm coming home from college, and my mom has come over to pick me up in Miami because I couldn't get to Fort Myers or whatever, or Naples. And we're passing onto Fifth Avenue, and it says 1247, 73 degrees. And we go up to the beach, and I crawl into my bed, and the windows are open. And that sound and that dampness of the sheets from the little bit of humidity, that's still the same.
Yeah.
The reason that we came here in the first place, the blue skies, the water, the air, the beauty of the place, the trees, the people, that's the same. Yeah. The 1,400 square foot house now is 6,000 square feet. The 3,000 square foot house is now 9,000 square feet. They're all raised at 12 or 14 or 16 or 18 feet. And the millionaires of the 1960s and 70s and 80s that you didn't know who they were are now billionaires, and you know who they all are.
Yeah.
But the place and the feel of the place is still the same. At least that's how I look at it.
I love your passion about it.
Yeah.
You're very passionate about our community. I love that. You can feel it when you talk.
Yeah.
Like when you talk about your food.
Yeah.
It's the same. Well, I want to say thank you for coming. What makes Naples extraordinary isn't just its beauty. It's the people who have built it and helped preserve it and share their stories. Tony, thank you so much for joining us today. I really, really appreciate you spending the time with me on your busy afternoon.
Thank you, Kristen. It's been a joy and a privilege.
A big thank you today for our location sponsor, Feel Amazing Spine Institute. Without them, we would not have a place to do this. So thank you again for your space. And also don't forget to like, subscribe, follow, and share the Icons of Naples podcast and interviews with your friends and family so they can stay up to date on our next episodes. We'll see you soon.